Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Male. I'm a writer producer, and I am so excited to be here today to talk about music for children's animation with these three amazing panelists we have here. Joining me today are composer Bobby Villarreal from Nickelodeon's Dora, composer Jared Faber from Nickelodeon's The Tiny Chef Show, and composer-songwriter Jon Chau from Paramount Plus's Baby Shark's Big Adventure. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be speaking with you all today.
Hello.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's our absolute pleasure. I have a childlike enthusiasm to talk about music with y'all. So let's just jump into music for children's animation, shall we? Bobby, I'd love to start with you, especially since you have been working on an internationally recognized series like Dora the Explorer. How do you approach scoring the new series reboot Dora, and in what ways does the score incorporate Latin American music and culture?
Oh, great question. Gosh, well, I guess to start, when I first got the call to score the reboot, I was just completely floored. Like growing up, I knew who Dora was. The show came out in 2000, as you know, and just to be able to like add to a series, just a beloved and iconic series that's been around for a long time that people know around the world. It's like, oh my gosh, me? Really? Is this does you really want me on this? I mean, I'm still pitching myself, if you can't tell. So anyway, no, one of my first initial meetings was with creator Chris Gifford, who's one of the co-creators of Dora the Explorer. So it was just so cool to hear from him about, who Dora is. And so he talked about how Dora is a fearless leader. Dora is she's a friend to all. She's a champion of inclusivity, and most importantly, she everything she does, she approaches with love. Whether it's her rainforest friends or new characters she meets on her adventures, everything's approached with love and a curiosity. And so that was one of those through lines that we really wanted to make sure to pay tribute in the new show, and to bring to audiences in 2024 to say, hey, Dora's back, but everything you love about her, hopefully, it's still there. So yeah, so when approaching the music, we want to make sure we kept the love alive, we kept the heart alive. And in terms of Latin American music and culture, I mean, it's so rich and so vast, uh, um, a genre, um, and so that's actually one of the more fun things in approaching scoring the show is I sit down with music supervisor Holly Gregory, and we talk about, okay, here's an episode. Where does Dora go? Who does she meet? Are there any cultural references we can pull from? Anything that's like that we can make super authentic choices that'll, immerse people in that world. So one of my favorite examples is she came across a little like salamander type character called an ocelot, which I didn't even know
Oh,
what an
yeah,
ocelot.
yeah,
Right, an ocelot, many people don't know. And by the way, bonus points if anybody here knows how to spell ocelot.
yeah. No.
Okay, I think
But
it
I know what
literally
it is.
I think it's like AXOTOTL or something like that. Anyway, it's a little salamander, very cute salamander from the Stillwater Lakes of central Mexico. And so we thought, okay, what if we pulled some of the music from Mexico City, which is right there? And so I wrote the Ocelot's theme, a little cumbia. And it's just one of those, this is just one of those things where if the audience picks up on it, great. But if not, no worries. But I feel like it's my job and responsibility to write the most authentic music we can and the approach, and um and in that way I feel like it just adds to the immersion, and helping tell the most engaging story, at the end of the day. So side note, this being Dora in 2024, one of the exciting things with bringing Dora to these audiences is, okay, what does Latin music sound like today? And so I'm a big fan of like artists like Bad Bunny and J Balvin and all these like crossover like reggaeton artists. And so bringing some of that palette into the show was also super exciting for me, because I was just like, okay, what if Dora had like some cues that have like 808s in them, and like trap sounds or like synths, and so like stuff you might not like think, okay, this belongs in a preschool show. And so keeping my ears out for music of the past, Juan Gabriel, Elvis Crespo, just music I love from Selena, all of that kind of music, but then kind of blending it with the new stuff. Hopefully tells an authentic Latin story, hopefully tells a relevant Latin story, and just it's a little bit of a fresh spin, but there's definitely a lot of tribute to the old series. And so yeah.
Cool. And I love how, as a fellow writer, I love that it all comes from a place of fleshing out and serving the story all at once. And then you learn how to balance and weave in all of the stuff that you love and like authentically honor the cultures that the story's set in. And keeping the international love going, Jon, let's talk about Baby Shark. What was your experience scoring a story based on an internationally recognized song and brand like Baby Shark? And as soon as I say Baby Shark, the song just starts playing in my head.
Yeah, it was such a huge honor. I feel what you're saying, Bobby. Still pinching myself sometimes. Um, when it all started to set in and I started to do a little bit more research about the song, that obviously I knew the song, but reading that, I didn't realize at that time that it had become the most viral video, the most watched YouTube video of all time. I think it's at 14 billion views. All that being said, there's a little bit of pressure, but also such an honor. And I started to realize what a unique opportunity that was. To be working on a film, to be helping tell a story that's based off of something that majority of the population has some familiarity with, and especially on a musical level, that was really special and something I really wanted to harness. I just I thought I realized there was so much power to familiarity, whatever relationship people might have with that song, the fact that they know it, I thought there was something really special to capture, to utilize, and to, bring into the music to create an emotional connection with that already exists. Sometimes it's in really subtle ways, sometimes it's
Mhm.
even subliminal, but
Mm.
to take these little, these little things, these, like you said, the do-do-dos, these little
Yeah,
rhythm
yeah, yeah.
and melodic elements that are already there, and to present them in ways that hopefully audiences have never heard before. The story, the film itself has so much heart, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's really emotional. Sometimes it's larger than life. There's this one scene in particular I love when they first show up to this city, Chomp City, and it's this huge, grandiose, larger than life moment. And moments like that are where I could really have fun with that, and kind of quote the song in
Yeah.
again really subtle ways, but it just there was just so much inspiration that I could pull from that. Another funny story is that as I was diving into it all and really starting to think about how I was going to approach this creatively, I didn't realize that the Baby Shark song originated from something prior to from the
Mm.
Pink Fong video, right? It was a campfire
Mhm.
chant that a lot of us might have chanted along with at summer camps, and I realized that I had sang along with this. So that actually became a really big inspiration for how I approached it sonically and instrumentation I used, because my first exposure to it was in summer camps as a kid. I started playing around with a lot of instruments I associate, like acoustic guitars and ukuleles, bongos, all these campfire instruments. And for a lot of the emotional moments of the story, that's that was my inspiration for it. It's building something from all those really organic camp instruments that are special to me in that way,
Yeah.
and letting that really dictate where the score went sonically.
That's so interesting because it just underscores the importance of doing your research, right?
Yes,
Because then
absolutely.
you never know what it's going to lead to. I always say research is my favorite part of the storytelling process because like no decisions have to be made yet, and you find all these you get to unearth all these like amazing little gems of inspiration.
Definitely.
My next question is for everyone. How do you believe that music can contribute to children's development and education?
Kind of piggybacking off what Jon said, I mean, having if there's ways to find kind of those organic instruments and sounds, ukulele and bongos and things, maybe some other kids went to summer camp and they're like, hey, I played those instruments. So like instrumentation alone can be something to kind of, bring people and bring kids in and like, hey, I know how to play that instrument. Um, I know in Dora, there's a lot of moments where it's either on like kazoo or little whistled
Right.
melodies or sung stuff, and so there's that interactive element with kids,
Mm.
where oh, sing along with us, and then one of the characters will demo a whistle or something, and then it's like then the kid can chime in. I have a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old daughter, and it's so crazy to see her like respond to the show. And so like I call her my little focus group because like the music that I'm writing, I can see like, oh, this works. Okay, like she's responding to this. I mean, it's really a real privilege to write, as I'm sure Jared and Jon can hopefully agree, to write music for the children's medium, because there is really that responsibility to say, okay, how am I going to connect with these kids in the most effective way? And so yeah, so I guess my answer would be instrumentation, themes, if there's a way to have that sort of interactivity, that can also help draw the kids in and viewers in.
Yeah, I like that you use the word privilege. Bobby, it's absolutely a privilege and responsibility. I think Nickelodeon does a really good job, and I love that we're Nickelodeon family here. Nickelodeon does a really good job of fostering this culture in their stories. There's a responsibility not only to teach about different cultures like you were talking about, also just lessons about life, how to be kind and how to take care of the people you love. I'm sure it comes up a lot in the stories that you guys worked on, and same in Baby Shark. That's such a huge theme. And, as composers, I think we can really strengthen this and uphold this by really, you know, tapping into the heart of the story, because the more that the children and the parents even, the more that they care about this story and that they care about the characters, the more that they'll be able to listen to these lessons and really hear what they have to say. So, as composers, that's kind of our job, right? To help strengthen the emotional ties of the story. So, yeah, definitely feel the responsibility, and that same for me. I have not the same, but I have two nieces and a nephew, 1, 3, and 5. And this was the first movie that they ever watched all the way through, so that was really special. And that's when it really hit home that, hey, we are doing something here. There is responsibility, and we can just help strengthen these lessons that start in the writing. They start in the script, but we can help be a part of that. And I think when it comes to children's stories, the beautiful thing about it is you have to be really concise about what you're trying to say, right? Not to say there are still layers sometimes, and there can still be some pretty amazing complex writing, but you do need to be really concise about what you're trying to say here.
Brevity and simplicity are a lot more difficult than I think we give them credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially when we're dealing with evolving attention spans. What about you, Jared? Anything to add?
Try to take what I think of as sort of the classic Sesame Street approach, which is to not dumb down what I'm doing and to not be afraid of going sophisticated, musically, harmonically, rhythmically. It is inevitable when you're working in shows for kids that there's moments that require simplicity, and my show, I tend to go with a pretty small musical palette because it's literally about a tiny little guy, this little stop motion green puppet, and everything is tiny, and so I try to sonically fit how things look visually, but musically, I try to just go for it. And in fact, I find that with kids shows much more than when I'm working on not adult, but adult projects. When you're working on a you have in the kids world, you actually have a broader palette. You can actually go farther. You can go weirder. Like it's like there's less rules or less sounds that you're supposed to hear. So sometimes I go pretty far out with it.
That's so cool.
And hopefully that does have some benefit on young ears, because I feel like there's more than ample opportunity for kids today to hear really simple music, both inside the kids space and just in pop music and whatever, and where things are going. And so, yeah, I try to broaden it as much as I can. And maybe that partially keeps me engaged as well.
I mean, that's brilliant. I just think of the Disney Renaissance that I grew up on, some of the most brilliant compositions of Alan Menken's. So I,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that all of y'all are continuing that amazing tradition. Um, Speaking of continuing traditions, Bobby, what was your experience crafting all new original themes for the characters in Dora, and how did these themes contribute to the storytelling?
So, wow, I was blown away that that was the approach for the new show, and of course it was. It's like it's a fresh show, it's new Dora, and so it's like I was so excited to just like okay, get to write new themes for all these shows and no pressure, right? I mean, for all these
I mean,
characters, right?
I could sing Backpack for you right now. And I was
Exactly.
too
Yep.
old. I was too old for that show, but I would watch it babysitting and I know
Yep.
I could sing Backpack for you right
Exactly. And
now.
it's so funny because like we all can it and my kids would watch the old we're watching the old series and so it almost became a personal challenge of like, all right, how am I gonna get my kids to sing like the new backpack,
Oh,
like the new, and so I also I can't take all the credit. We work with an amazing team of songwriters, Jolly Pop, Charity Daw, George Gabriel, to name a few. And they've crafted the themes for Backpack and for Mappa, which is Map.
mm-hmm,
So Mappa's now female, it's called Mappa.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but for some of the other characters like Tico the squirrel, Benny the bull, Isa the iguana, I wrote themes, a new Swiper theme.
Slay.
Um, and so it was so fun, and I think it required a lot of work on the front end. Luckily, we had a little more time during the pilot to sort of iron these things out. Because once you develop those themes, it's like this is going to carry on through the series. So we took, I think the approach, if I could describe the approach, it was sort of like a Peter and the Wolf approach where every character gets its own little instrument. Kind
Mm,
of like we wanted like a little signature sound for each character. And so for Benny, I have like a little slidey trombone. For Swiper, I've got some bendy accordions because he's kind of crafty and you don't really hear accordions bend notes in a way. So that was like kind of like a strategy there. For Issa, we've got a little pan flute. Um, so it was all about crafting very unique, um, concise, like you were saying earlier, like it's the hardest to sort of boil things down to like just a few notes, just a little earworm that
mhm,
people can latch onto. And so that was so much fun. And the device and the way it's used in the show for storytelling is like you can play that theme off screen and we know they're coming. We see Benny's balloon in the distance. We don't even know if he's in there, but we hear his little theme come in and it's like, okay, here he comes.
mhm.
And Swiper's a big one because Swiper's always sneaking in. I mean, that guy just doesn't give up. I mean, he's
He's shady. He's a
I
shady
say,
dude.
yeah. So you hear his like the starting notes to his theme, and you're like, oh, here we go. Here comes Swiper. So in that way, it's a lot of fun. And Jared, to your point, I love what you're saying about how you don't try to dumb the music down, at all. I mean, the complexity and all like we can't underestimate more how much young audiences how they're a lot smarter than we might give them credit for. They can absorb so much, and the more interesting the music is, just it's so important. It creates even more engagement. And so, but with the themes though, I found that like I'm sure a lot of you guys, the more singable it is, the better. You know, can you come away singing it like you were saying with the old backpack?
Yeah.
It's right here, so anyway, it's a lot of fun for sure.
Oh, 1,000%. I would have been so intimidated. So I love how you welcomed it as a challenge.
Yeah.
Also, it's so funny because I've worked on films, from script to release, and I'll watch scenes and the scene never feels complete in my opinion until there's music. I can watch something like, why does this not feel right? And it's like, oh, because they haven't scored it yet. Because I think you almost don't understand it until you watch dailies, how much the music really sets the tone for the scene in storytelling. So, Jared, how do you use music to create a whimsical and playful atmosphere in Tiny Chef? And what musical elements or instruments are particularly effective for conveying this tone?
Well, I think, yeah, like I was saying, I feel like the I was really trying to make things, to say it, make it sound small doesn't even do it justice. There's in the show, the set design and the meticulousness of this show is phenomenal. The artists who create it, um, it's everything is built. It's hand built, so that, for example, there was an on-screen band in the first season. There is in the second season as well. But in the first season, there was a drummer in the band, and his drums were made out of like bottle caps and like, everything looks just so organic and particular and perfect. And so I just try to bring as much of that musically as I can. I try to use as many instruments as I can physically play, and not use samples and synthesizers, and use as much hand percussion. I'll play like brushes on a wooden stool, or I do use acoustic guitar, a lot of banjo, ukulele, um, upright bass, which I do use a sample, but just sounds that really feel like you can hear fingers, like it really sounds tactile. Um, there's a bluegrass element, so there's like fiddle and as you guys all know, like with animation, inevitably the show can go in any direction. You could be all of a sudden having to go in full orchestral mode, and then all of a sudden you're going like death metal, because that's it's just it bounces around. But the general sound of the show, as far as like how I create the sound and what makes it whimsical or specific to this project, is, for me, it's just trying to make it really feel tactile and really just complement. It's phenomenal what they made physically, like visually. So I just feel like I kind of have that bar, to just make it feel detailed.
This is why I love talking to musicians, because you all think in ways I could not dream of. Like, making the sound tactile is like never a thought I would ever have in my brain ever. So I bow down to all of you. Jon, before I get too fangirly, creating drama and tension in children's content can be a really delicate balancing act. So how did you approach this challenge in the Baby Sharks big movie series?
Yeah, it's a fun topic. There's a lot of balancing and a lot of threading the needle. In particular, it came up a lot with the main antagonist, Dariana, who's voiced by Ashley Tisdale, did an amazing job. Yeah.
Wait, also, can I change my name to Stariana?
It's a good one. I mean, she's a fantastic character. They did a really good job of just making her interesting. Her personality switches so quickly. She's a villain in all senses, and it's interesting. I related to the question a little bit. I talking to the writers when we first spotted it, there was a lot of discussion. Do we want to make a little gray area? Do we want to make her more sympathetic? And that can work sometimes, right? Like Jared said, we don't want to. There's no need to dumb things down for kids, but ultimately the decision was made. Let's just make her go full out evil, maniacal. It just worked for the story. But to that point, because she has these very evil, big, almost Jafar-like moments, I was always in my head. Jafar from Aladdin. There was always this discussion of how scary do we want to make this, and there is this balance, and again, this responsibility, right? So when we were first spotting it, with director Alan Foreman, who just did an incredible job with this, there was a lot of scenes where we would discuss how scared do we actually want kids to be, because they need to understand the gravity of this, but we don't want them to be bawling, crying, like running away from this. So that threading that needle came out a lot when I was deciding how to approach it, harmonically, sonically, with the instrumentation, and not to get too nerdy in the musical sense, but yeah, it came out a lot in a harmonic way. I started to realize that augmented chords was for this character was kind of the magical key to bringing that evil, maniacal side, but still keeping it playful. I even I drew inspiration from things like mischievous cat videos you hear on TikTok with a lot of like it's a lot of plucky sounds, a lot of creeping around. And you never really know sometimes until you sit down and you just start playing things out and experimenting with the visuals, which is why it's important to have fun and just play with it. Sometimes you're just not sure what will work until you experiment, and once you do figure that out, then it starts to write itself. Um, and also on the flip side, besides the drama and the tension, even just in the really emotional moments, something that comes to mind again when we were spotting it during some of the really dramatic emotional moments, we would literally have this conversation. How much do we want kids to cry in the scene? Are we
Oh
talking
yeah.
one tear? Do we want tears streaming? Do we want them
A
bawling? Do
lot,
we want them
a
sobbing?
lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We sometimes, I think a lot of the creatives we wanted to really push things, and why not? Let's really go just all out. There was again always this balancing act. We had to decide. Let's bring this down to let's get tears streaming down the face. Maybe not sobbing. And these are conversations that extended all the way to the dub stage. As you know, a lot of these topics came up. Are we worried that this is too emotional? Is this is too scary? So not even the music, the sound design sometimes it required at the very end of the process. Just sometimes it's just volume. Like let's just turn everything down.
Mm,
Might be a little too tense. For Baby Shark, especially, it's pre-K age groups. So
right.
yeah, it was fun, and I learned a lot just from having that conversation, and also learning that sometimes it's really valuable to just give a lot of different versions from the top to save everybody time and to,
Yeah.
like I said, the experimentation is important. So giving options can be a really good technique to just get things approved and done.
Right.
Yeah,
I think as creatives, we all have to remember that this isn't the Hunger Games and no one's going to kill us if an idea
yeah,
doesn't work. So you might as well just throw
yeah,
everything at the wall.
exactly.
At least for now, no one's going to kill us if
Yeah.
an idea doesn't work. This is a question for everyone. I would love for Jared to kick it off. Are there any specific goals or objectives you have in mind when composing music for a children's show? Jared, do you want to kick us off?
I think that my goals are similar, whether it's a children's show or not a children's show. Is I'm always just I want to find something that just feels really specific to the project that I'm on. That uh, avoid it feeling in any way generic. And I want it to be able to associate with the show. If you heard just a few notes of it, that you'd recognize it as the sound of that show. Um, I don't know beyond that I have a specific goal. It's really more a matter of connecting with the other creatives, involved, and the creators, and just trying to get on the same page so that you're working together and collaborating, and you understand what they want, and hopefully can infuse a little of your own creativity into it, and do your best to have a good time.
Yeah, right. It's just supposed to be fun, right? Allegedly.
Yeah, I mean it's fun. You're creating something that's supposed to be fun, so hopefully you put some fun into it.
Exactly. What about you, Bobby?
Um, I would agree, I agree with everything Jared said, and I think to add to it, I think one of the things I constantly try to remind myself as I'm approaching each show is how is the music enhancing the show,
Mm,
not matching the show, not following a scene, but enhancing, bringing something new to it. Because the animation, so I'm in the really lucky spot where I get pretty much a lot cut with all the animation, pretty
mm,
99% ready to go. So there's not too many picture changes. And the animation by Pipeline Studios is just so top notch and really looks great. And so I always think, okay, is the music just like I always try to think, all right, they set the bar here, and I always want to bring the music at least to here for sure.
mm,
But then I'm like, can I take it to the next step? So I joke with the music supervisor all the time. I'm like, Holly, I'm gonna give you big swings. Like either I want to send you a cue that just like is a home run or you hate it, and there's like no, and there's no in between, like I feel like with the big swings, they could either something really, really cool and unexpected can come out of that, or sometimes you get a revision on your hands, which is totally okay, so yeah, just like how are we getting inside the characters' heads to tell the story and just take it to the next level, because I think as the composer, it's kind of our job to look at what we're given and say how can I really enhance this. So again, just what a huge privilege to do what we do, and then it's like to put our little spin on it. You're right. It's not no Hunger Games. No one's gonna kill us if we're wrong, and hopefully we can take another stab. And so yeah, it's just gosh, to do what we do, it's really, really fun. What a gift.
That's so lovely. What about you, Jon?
Yeah, I agree with everything they're saying. It's inspiring to hear. And yeah, I agree that it's really important to tap into these stories. And for me personally, I maybe I'm over sentimental. For the most important parts to me are finding those emotional moments and the heart, and starting there, and then understanding what the story's about from those moments. I guess one of my specific goals is thinking about getting not just the young children, that might be the primary audience, but all ages really invested in the story, the parents, the older siblings. And luckily in something like Baby Shark, they did a good job of bringing on all these actors like Cardi B and Lance Bass, all these really
Yeah,
fun things that
Lance Bass
it
from
was so
NSYNC. So excited.
they did a really and hype in, they brought a K-pop band, and that made it honestly, they made it easy to just dive in and just fall in love with these characters and to get really excited. I think Jared was saying something about that. It's important for us to be excited and to have fun, because I think that really shines through in the music. And I think when you're able to do that and really get everyone engaged in the story, not just the young kids, you also can actually create an opportunity for parents or older siblings to bond with their kids through loving this story. So, yeah, it's important to just really get in there and fall in love with the story.
1,000%. I think I've been having a very nostalgic couple months, and there is nothing like rediscovering something you loved when you were little, or younger, and then realizing that it holds up, and then you can love it in a whole different way with all these different
Totally.
layers because you're older now.
Yeah.
My next question is, are there any challenges that you all face when writing music for specifically a younger audience? Bobby, why don't you kick off this one?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, I think someone mentioned this earlier, is if it's a scary scene, not making it going over the top, making it too scary, but finding that right level of fear that will keep you on the edge of your seat, but not running away, not running away. So that can definitely present a challenge. Another one, I think this comes up a lot in Dora, is there's a lot of because of there's just a lot of interactivity just inherent to the show. So there's a lot of moments where we want to make sure music doesn't get in the way.
Mm,
Either strip it down to just a small little rhythm section, or like if they're running somewhere, but Dora's giving us instructions that we need to jump and we need to say salta, and so it's just like let's bring down the groove, but allow the viewer to kind of lean in, and then we can come back, in full force. And so kind of respecting the dialogue, really, really knowing how to use silence. I think a lot of composers, at least that I admire, talk about how silence is just like an equal partner to the music, and learning how to use that silence. Like as much as we want to like raise our flag, it's like we're composers. It's like sometimes the silence is like the most effective thing we want to use. And so and then it ultimately highlights where we end up putting the music when it does come in. So I think that balance of finding it. Realizing like sort of when to get out of the way, take a back seat, and then come back in, is one of the things that is just good to always be mindful of. And yeah.
great. What about you, Jon?
Yeah, there's so many unique things, right? And I think we've touched on a lot of them already. But one thing you were mentioning before Victoria was about the short attention spans of kids, and because of that, there generally does need to be a lot of music. It's almost wall to wall, right? And I agree with you,
Mhm.
Bobby, that silence is such an important tool. But because there's so much music that generally that we do need to write for these scenes, we really have to capitalize on these moments and finesse it a bit. It might be less silence, but it is so powerful. Especially for comedic moments for me, I tend to really think that's when silence can really shine to help these
Mhm.
record scratch moments, things like that. I also it really resonated with me and was inspiring what you were saying, Jared, about making sure we still respect these audiences, even though no matter how young they are, to still bring it all the time. As I started to get into children's content, I wasn't as used to a lot of these kind of neutral type scenes where we're not necessarily pushing something so heavily like drama or emotions, but there's music going because,
That's,
like we said, that yeah, please. Go
I wasn't even thinking of that in terms of challenging, but what you just touched on, that is
Yeah,
that might be one of the toughest things is these neutral scenes, right? You have a
exactly.
scene, there's nothing specific going on, it's just exposition.
Yeah,
You know that there's supposed to be music there. You know that everyone is expecting you to score it, but it's not emotional, it's not scary, it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
particularly funny, but you
I
have to put
agree.
music there. So you're just playing behind the dialogue.
And yeah, those are the moments where, like you were saying, it's important to fight the temptation to not phone it in. I mean, and that sometimes it requires something very minimal, often. But that doesn't mean you don't have to put the same care into it and still give the audience something that's interesting and exciting. And yeah, might switch in a second to something huge, bombastic, and then to I don't know some 808s and chat pads like you were saying, Bobby. So yeah, I agree that that is definitely one of the most challenging things, but it also helps you learn so much as a composer about um, thinking outside the box, about restraint and
Yeah.
just creativity in general.
Anything else to add, Jared?
Yeah, before you brought that up, although this is sort of connected, as I was thinking, like, one of the challenges is what what I what I try really hard to not do and not be especially in the kids world, which it's a hard thing to avoid, is to I don't want to be there to provide musical sound effects.
Mm.
That is not what I want to do. I
Mm.
want to write music. And inevitably, you guys know there's stings, there's moments where there's just no way around it, and if you don't do it, you're going to get asked for it, where you got to put a little musical sound effect here and there. But the challenge, that I find is to try to write something that avoids that, and so that's where you kind of, you write through these moments and you try to make a piece of music that can hit the spots that they're going to want to hit,
Mm.
so that you don't just get stuck, you know, being like,
Mhm.
Pure Mickey
and
Mouse.
you just sit there feeling like, wow, absolutely anybody could be scoring this show. You
Yeah.
know, it, there's nothing on. You want to feel like you're bringing something that's that it just wouldn't be someone else would have a different approach.
Mhm.
Not that it's about you, the composer, but what you compose is about you, the composer, right? Like what you provide to the show is a service to the show. You're there to serve the story,
Right.
but how you do that. Hopefully you can have a unique way that each person can only do it the way they would do it,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's challenging. It's challenging because the space doesn't exist. It's not like you have like some 30-second montage of fields where you can write some beautiful suite of music, and then as dialogue starts you can kind of let it fade out. And no, like they're talking, there's all kinds of stuff going on, you have like 22 minutes of dialogue and you're supposed to pretty much fill it with music. So to do that in a way that actually feels musical, um, that is challenging. So if you create your library as you go through, if saving all your cues, I'd like to find that as I go through, my cues are longer than 2 seconds each. you know,
Yeah.
I want to have, pieces of music, that's the challenge. But, some of that, I think that what I said is legitimate, but some of that, it's just the job is the job. So you have to do what you need to do in the moments.
I like what you're touching on here, Jared. It really resonates because I think that's one of our biggest jobs as composers, right? In general, but it's really heightened when we work on these types of stories that require such specific things. Our challenge is there's a lot of different clients, first of all, that we need to satisfy. And if we can first do that, but then also retain musicality, be inspired by what we're writing, and bring something innovative and something that shows some of our personal style. And I think if we can bring all those things together, that's when magic can happen. And yeah, I think it's lucky to be able to work on this type of content where the challenges sometimes are heightened and we need to work out those muscles a little more. But when we can do it, we can learn a lot from it.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes a few episodes to get there too, because people have expectations of what they're going to get, and you need to fulfill those, because the farther outside of the norm you go, the more eyebrows are going to raise. But once you kind of get in the flow and you get trust, you can move a little bit.
I feel like I'm getting a masterclass. I love this. Going back to the show's themes and storylines, how do those specifically inform your inspiration and how you want to innovate when you're composing the music for each of your projects? Is there anything you look out for or pay special attention to when you're writing music for your projects?
I always try to draw inspiration from the subject material in a really visceral way when I'm starting out. I mean, just for me personally, it's really inspiring. And I think it's an interesting process because when it comes down to it, and I'm sure Bobby, Jared, you guys can agree with this. We can make sounds out of anything, right? Like sounds are just, I had a professor back in the day that would talk about sounds are just mud, clay, and we can use that and create anything out of it. So it's almost not so much about what we're using as the inspiration itself and the workflow. And going beyond that, if we can use that as a way to get really excited and really inspired, it's something we can also pass along to the client, the directors, the producers. It's something I like to do early on is get these ideas of I'm going to go out into the field and sample this or make an instrument out of this and send photos, send videos to the director because they can also get excited about that. And also, just kind of a tip to composers, you're also kind of preparing them to love what you're going to write before they even hear it, because this kind of inspiration is important, and it also gives a lot of opportunities for marketing down the line. Just cool little things to get viewers, audiences excited about what they're hearing. And again, the sound could have come from anything, but it just helps tell the story of your composing process, and it's still genuine because you're still getting so excited about what you're doing. An example from Baby Shark is right away from the start, I knew I wanted to create an instrument out of something unique, something I could help tell the story about the ocean, all these lovely characters. And someone told me about something in San Francisco where I live. There's something called a wave organ, and it's off the pier, and it's a structure someone made with all these PVC pipes that are kind of positioned in a way that the waves come and hit it, and they create these really interesting gurgly sounds. And so early on in the process, and it's something I talked to the director about, something I really wanted to do, create a theme out of, is I went and recorded this and just thought ahead. I got some footage, it's something you can always use for marketing, and recorded these interesting gurgly ocean sounds, and then made an instrument out of it, which honestly could have come from anything. They're just noises, but it's all part of the story, and it's all ways that we can just get really excited about what we're doing. And yeah, it became one of the most prominent themes that are thinking that throughout the entire film. It became a theme where characters are getting enchanted by the villain Stariana, and it's a really simple theme. It's three notes, but it came from this instrument, and it just became part of the story of the composition process, and it was just a lot of fun.
I love that. I love that you're inviting people into the process, into your process, which I think is amazing.
I think film music, music for TV, it's such a referential medium where like we're coming up with something ourselves, but really it's like, no, what inspired us from our past? Like all these little things, these little nuggets that we're drawing from. And so on Dora, I had the really distinct privilege of working with this wonderful composer and Venezuelan percussionist, Lorena Perez Batista. I hope I'm saying all her name correctly, but she's fabulous, and she played a lot of timbales and Dominican tamboras and congas and bongos, and so it sort of really added a lot of that real authentic richness to the score, to that rainforest palette. Just you hear these little sounds in the background, and it's like, no, these are all live. I mean, this is like one of the questions Chris asked me when I submit the demo for Dora was like, how the rainforest now has such a rich sound. Like, how did you come up with this sound? Because it included all those like eclectic little like live sounds, but then it included like a lot of like 808s and that kind of new age. I don't want to say new age. You know what I mean? Like the new pop stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like reimagining a world that doesn't exist is so exciting. Is so exciting. Like Jon is saying, like, what are some of the instruments I can bring in? But there's the ocean could have a myriad of sounds. You know, the rainforest could have a myriad of sounds. A tiny chef show, I'm sure, could have many, a kitchen, many approaches. And so I think for all of us, it's like finding our unique ways to kind of bring the things that we love to that is so key and so important, and just so fun. I mean, it's so fun. I mean, like and so I don't know, I get such a kick out of working with other musicians, bringing other live musicians onto the show, and that to me is so special because it is a collaboration. We are referenced. I am inspired by so many composers from the past, and so like drawing from them, artists.
It's why we do it.
That's why we do it. Yeah, exactly. So like,
for sure.
I don't know what the saying is, but like, you know, standing on the shoulders of giants. I really feel that every day, right? Something like that. So
1,000%. And then Jared, take us home.
What both of them are saying, you know, it really is that, right? You're finding the inspiration from both the context and the project, as well as, like they pointed out, like how these worlds, you know, you don't have to be that, you don't have to dig that deep to find a creative way to pull a sound out of that world, right? And that's awesome. I mean, with those, what you know, what you guys are talking about, you know, sampling things from the world, bringing in great musicians who can really, you know, when you have wonderful musicians playing on your score, there's nothing better. And yes, and when you find things that don't exist elsewhere, again, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's not, I mean, I'm not, yeah, it's just a new take on something that, you know, now it's unique to your show and it's fun and you're finding it as you go. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just reiterating, you know,
I love that.
You know, just trying to find some fun with it, you know, you find a sound somewhere along the way and you're like, oh, that sound, oh, that I can use that sound every time. Oh, what if I do this with it? And then you're playing, you know, you're trying to, you know, dig out a little inspiration out of your devices. And of course, here's something to add, what neither of these guys touched on, but I'm sure they love to do, is you buy new toys. You know,
absolutely.
You get a new plug-in, you grab a new instrument, you find something weird in a little shop. You're like, oh, this little egg shaker, that's gonna be the thing. I needed it. How did I not? I don't know.
No,
it's
I think
good
that's
excuse to buy toys.
But I think you all are talking to something where, again, as creation, even though now this is how we pay our bills and like sustain our families and have a livelihood, we can never lose that sense of play. And I think especially in the genre y'all are working in. So I love that. I think you brought us home quite beautifully, Jared. Unfortunately, I'm bummed because that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much to Bobby, Jared, and Jon for your absolutely illuminating insights into music for children's animation. And thank you all for watching.